and tonight I am joined by Michael WRYT, singer, songwriter, and musician in WRYT, a pop rock artist that delivers songs with grunge-inspired guitars and intentionally crafted lyrics that emote social consciousness in modern times. Their music stands with the oppressed and directionless and confronts injustice. More at wrytmusic.com. That's WRYTmusic.com. Stay tuned for our behind-the-scenes look at Death in a Dream, available now on all major platforms. And please put your questions for Michael in the chat, and I will ask them throughout the live stream. Welcome, Michael. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me tonight. You must be pretty excited about Death in a Dream being launched.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's at this time that it's finally been released. So,
well, what would you think would be maybe like the hardest part of the push? Is it like the writing, the recording, the video?
To be honest with you, it wound up being just waiting on mixing and mastering, and with that, I'd say the process at the time was pretty healthy. It was one that 4 a.m. wake up in the middle of having a dream and wrote a song on acoustic guitar, and then it turned really pumped about.
We're definitely excited to share it with everybody here that's on the call. But before we dive in, do you want to tell everybody a little bit more about yourself?
Michael, I've been on the moniker WRYT for a couple of years. Praise and worship artist under the lovely Vine. And with my music has been the lifeblood of my family for years. His office, who's a gospel and many other hats. So it's good to be able to have my own. Incredibly excited to be talking to Daniel tonight and for the world.
Thank you so much, Michael. We're still having some of those connection issues, so I'm afraid we're not getting you in loud and clear. I'd like I'd like to say, that we'd get you get all of these answers. I hope some good questions for you, and I'd like to get some answers from you. But just in the meantime, just so that way we can maybe have a chance to work through some of these on the backside, why don't we go ahead and give everybody a bit of an introduction to your music with the music video for Charlatan. You released that a couple of months ago. Before I dive in, is there anything that maybe you want to try to tell our listeners about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think like Charlatan was written from a place of just noticing this song was primarily a system photo of the border patrol agents out from under the bridge in Texas, and indication from that time. There was a song that had a white boy holding a whip while riding a horse, and can't help but be reminiscent a slavery or Black History Museum, and stung a lot. So this was in a healthy way, and hopefully, but differently around how we communicate and how we.
It's a powerful story. I'm going to find a better way to share it with everybody, but I know that the music will come through, and you've got the lyric video here, so they'll be able to definitely catch the message throughout the track. So let's go ahead and dive in, and we'll watch that.
Sounds good.
Were you scared fate overwhelm you as your white knuckles crack that web? Does the fear when they all cower sow the seeds of detriment? This indoctrinated valor feeds your greed and prominence. Such a delicate imbalance driven by an arrogance. tearing down your heritage. The seduction of your power and your blind obedience shows us mercy has no value, shows our blood still holds no worth. Another coward needs a grave. Another bastard seeking fame. Oh. Make no mistake, this is a choice you made. It feels like it's the modern way. Tear down humanity, correct your mistakes. It feels like it's the modern way. Another coward needs a grave. And another bastard seeking fame. We sing, just scream, make it loud, make it loud, make it loud. And scream, make it loud, make it loud, make it loud. Make no mistake, this is a choice you made. Feels like it's the modern way. Tear down humanity, correct your mistakes. Feels like it's the modern way. It's the modern
Awesome. How you doing there, Michael?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Any
I'm not sure. Now we've got a little crackle in there when you're speaking. So
Of course. Of course. He wins again.
technology. Are you willing to try it without the video, and we'll see if the audio comes in a little better?
Absolutely.
Let's give that a whirl.
Well, how's that?
We still got that crackle. What about without the headset?
No headset.
No headset. Okay, so we still got the crackle. So now I still don't know where it's
Now-
all coming from.
Now the puzzle is completely
You might as well get the camera back on so at least we could see you. We'll get the lip readers out to so
There
we
we
could
go.
properly transcribe this video. Definitely want to shout out to Joseph and Jonathan joining us here in the YouTube chat. Appreciate you tuning in. If you've got any questions for Michael, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will have Michael text them to me and I will read them aloud. You can stay in touch with Michael on Instagram. That is his social media poison of choice. You can also check out his website at wrytmusic.com. That's WRYT music.com. Doing a little bit of research while the song was playing, trying to pull up a little bit about that story for the Border Patrol agent, trying to like sync up the lyrics and the visuals there, with the story. It looks like, unfortunately, that the agents that were involved were, I guess, like all the charges were annulled. That's probably not the right legal term,
Yeah.
but that seems to be the sense.
Yeah.
So the song, of course, is kind of written. I mean, obviously, just the imagery of the photographs themselves of the border patrol agents, carrying the whips. It's a just kind of a thing that you shouldn't have all of those pieces in place to be able to like get that photo there. Kind of knowing that they're cleared after the fact of not like having whipped anybody, and you've gotten the chance to kind of tell the story. Does the story change for you at all? Like over time, as the story evolves publicly?
I think that I don't want to speak for all people of color, especially for anyone that's brown. I think that the reality of stories like this happen all too often. And this one just happened to make news, and the fact that the charge really changed the feeling. Um, Reality is, and I think in this particular case, this is a painful reality. In the wake of Breonna Taylor, and a lot of racial reckoning that this country's had to go through, and it's salt in the wound a little bit, and not in any way surprised. Back in history, and there are thousands and of stories like this. With whatever happened, I'm illegal in any capacity, and result of what looks like a very those folks is really incredibly unfortunate. So you have the meaning of the song at all, because I think that there's still needs to happen, and there's some anger that needs to happen that I don't think that we exert as often as we'd like to, and have a lot of anger around it. So that's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, justifiably so. And also kind of pointing into that anger, your music is traditionally more aggressive. Death in a Dream is kind of a departure from that, so I want to tackle that a bit. But you also have a beautiful singing voice. I don't know if men generally like to be complicated on beautiful singing voices, but you definitely have one.
Thank you.
It's definitely in stark contrast with kind of the aggressive nature of the harder, heavier music. Is it intentional to try to keep that purity of the message in your voice as opposed to like growling or adding effects to it?
That's a great question. One time, I mean, I grew up a metalhead. I grew up in bands, and screaming and things like that. And my favorite music, my voice does not lend itself R&B voice more than anything. R&B range, so might as well lean into it a little bit more. I think that the reality for me, or using effects that make my voice gravelly is really just around. I'm an African American. I think traditionally you wouldn't expect me to know Chuck Berry and plenty of other blues artists. Uh, did exactly what I'm doing. So I see it more of like this is what what's comfortable for me. It might change in the future. I'm always open to what does. For a lot of these, it was just this is what it sounds good singing. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what about you talked about kind of your background a little bit. Joseph had asked if you would tell us a little bit more about childhood influence that kind of helped shape the music that you're writing today.
Yeah. I mean, my father, as I said, in club in New York, so I grew up on Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, and Prince, and then Metallica's Black Album for me, and Enter Sandman. Well, that started a different path. So I've kind of this duality of music of what's traditionally just considered white or other, and just liked music that made me feel something, and most of that led to a former career as a artist and being a praise and worship leader in churches. A crisis of faith left that world, and I'm going to write the music that feels good to write. And sometimes it's really soft, sometimes it's incredibly loud. There's an homage to who really inspires me. So I think for do a lot of Thrice, some Sleeper down in Dallas, Texas, and it just kind of was playing. So it was a lot of fun.
I was going to touch on it a little later, but you've mentioned it, your time as a youth pastor and a crisis of faith and that kind of transition, if you will, from worship music into what most would call mainstream music, if you will. So I know that from my departure from growing up in a Baptist church kind of landed on that music felt like my calling, and that there were conflicts between what I was able to do in terms of my music and the way that the church felt that reflected on them. And eventually I decided that my music was going to be the winner of, of that decision. And that led to, a long story that I won't get into, but I certainly relate to just the fact that in say like leaving church, that some of those messages are retained, or the just the morality, the community, the sense of like trying to help others, and I see those examples in your music, and wondering if you could kind of talk a little bit about that transition from gospel into talking about current events and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, as a contemporary, a lot of and finding the right way to have the right message in the songs, and becoming rather scientific in how a song's written. You want to be imagery that you're putting forward in the song that you're writing about. And my former partner, she was a Lutheran. That was the path that we set out to do. And after working in a church for years, a lot of the oppression happening with people that I love and care about, that different lifestyles. I fully didn't see why it was such a problem that we didn't see eye to eye on everything, or sitting with the people outside of church far more than I was in. When I think about what my grandmother taught me, my parents in general, a lot of it was like, everybody follow Jesus, because that's going to be a really big, and that ultimately became like I started believe in what's happening in this church. A lot of things that are in the Bible. There's a lot of things I don't like about the Bible. Love people, and I want to see people. And it just said, like, I don't, and made the decision to step aside. From that moment forward, I think the people that now are evangelicals, and I have no pride in saying, what is wrong with you? And I don't think that my theology gives me anything like that, but I do think that there's an immense thought and allowing difference of opinion in thought way.
Absolutely. I definitely think of, the protest of a military funeral where the service member as being gay during the Westboro Baptist Church's heyday as being an example of trying to distance myself from kind of popular versions of Christianity, if you will, in exchange for something that certainly feels more authentic with a relationship with God directly. So thanks for going a little bit into the background behind that. I hope that it's a powerful message for somebody listening. Well, I don't want to get too far into some more questions before we get into Death in a Dream, so I'd like to go ahead and debut that. Available now on all streaming platforms. What's your personal favorite place to stream music?
I'm a hacker for Spotify and Apple Music. I pay for both, unfortunately.
Yeah, like a little bit of everything. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Perks for every service, I'm sure. Well, before we listen to Death in a Dream, I've mentioned already it's a little bit different from kind of the heavier tones that we just heard in Charlatan. Is there anything that you want to mention about it beforehand, or should we listen and then we'll geek out afterwards?
Either way, man. I think having the conversation that we just had and talking about that was written about meeting was something I don't think is like what happens if you see yourself die in your dream. Me, and then it was just this moment of someone, whether it was my grandmother, my grandfather, someone was there, and it made me, if that was heaven, if that was hell, if that was purgatory, if that was nothing, feel better, after witnessing that. So that's what became Death in a Dream.
Thank you so much. Let's dive in and we'll check it out.
I saw my death in a dream last night. I saw the light disappear from my eyes. I drifted on through space and time. I felt the wonder and fear stood aside. Every sensation continually change. A cryptic memory I could not explain. And then there was you. Then there was you. I saw your face, I felt your grace, you brought me through. What lies in heaven that will measure out my faith? Will I take the fall and will my life be left in vain? If there's a hell, will I be living out my pain? Have I experienced the limits of my greed? More curiosities I'll never understand. But in the end I'm just another dying man. And then there was you. Then there It's your grace, you brought me through.
That's another really powerful track. It's so contrasting between Charlatan and a lot of the other tracks that I've heard of yours,
Yeah.
and it did make me think of Fierce as well. It just maybe like kind of almost like a response to Fierce, because you're kind of talking about death in these kind of two different dimensions a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that written in response to me finally confronting a good a few years ago, whereas Death in a Dream was written years before that. Really just had a dream, woke up, and this was the song that came written in one take. I think we went through it a couple times, but it was pretty much a one. It kind of had some legs, so I was on to this one for a while while we released it. Yeah, I mean, definitely the contrast between Death and absolutely see that for sure.
Well, to kind of step away a little bit from the music, what do you do when you want to step away from like all of the hustle and bustle of putting out your next single or music video?
Oh man, lot. So there's that. That's step one. Have a good 9 to 5. But I have been I shouldn't say it adventure enthusiast, but a riding motorcycles has always been a big thrill and passion. So I've local long distance rides, and then to Yosemite, all off road with camping. Pretty much the closest to relaxing I've had since so that'll probably be, I think.
That's good. That's being finding the road relaxing is a great precursor for national touring one day. So
absolutely case on top of that. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that in the past you've mentioned like Nine Inch Nails and Thrice as being some of your like biggest influences, or maybe your longest running influences, if you will.
Probably.
So I was curious if by chance that somebody from Nine Inch Nails or Thrice would end up watching this video, like what might be something that you'd tell them?
It's a great fortune of having lunch with Thrice. Both was terrifying but amazing at once. I'd probably. That's a good question, Daniel. I think with a conversation with Trent and would just be really a lot around songwriting and composing and writing that builds, that has layers, that has dynamics throughout. Having a really nerdy conversation about music, and with around the lyrical quality, able to draw the right and make that make the song cohesive. Write a good song lyrically with a song that sounds great sonically, and that. So, two very different conversations. Gratitude, a lot of shyness, which I am, but to be very shy. Heroes, I think you like them being your heroes, but it's different.
And it's funny because you know deep down it's just another person, but there's still that kind of butterfly insides that seem to creep up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I've got one more question for you. If anybody else has a question they'd like to put in the chat, I'll be happy to ask it. I'll try to extend this one out a little bit. It's a two-parter. The first one is, when is your birthday? And what would you consider to be a great birthday present or like an experience to have on your birthday?
Just turned 35, and that my lovely girlfriend took me to Red Rocks in Colorado, and that may be one of the.
Well, we'd certainly, we'd love to be able to tune into those talks, with Trent Reznor and Addison Ross, or with Thrice. We'd love to sneak those. We'd
Yeah.
also love to see you play at Red Rocks. I think that'd be an incredible experience.
I think that'd be pretty in a dream at Red Rocks. That sounds.
Consider your first ticket sold.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate everybody that joined us here tonight for a behind the scenes look at Death in a Dream. I cannot express how exciting it is to have been getting to know you, Michael, over the last few months. We've got a public Discord server that you joined pretty early on, and still looking to create more opportunities and engagement here on that platform. If you're here tuning in tonight, whether you're a musician or a industry professional, if you do video work, audio production, things like that, we're hoping to create an environment in our public Discord server where you really get to connect with other people, collaborate on multiple projects. And this call is a result of that, which I'm very excited for. And apologies that it took so long. I've kind of dropped the ball there for a little bit.
Totally fine. It happened at the right time. That's all that matters.
Well, congratulations on the release of Death in a Dream, and we'll be looking for more ways to try to share it with our audience in the next coming weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You can learn more about Alchemical Records by visiting us at alchemicalrecords.com. Consider subscribing to our in-print zine, slated for this month. We're so close to getting ready to drop it out there. You can find out more about that at alchemicalrecords.com/magazine. And I am Daniel Hill. You can find me mostly on LinkedIn. That's now my social media platform of choice. Nice. I think it keeps me grounded, if you will.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.